definitely be bringing you live on location reports in just a couple of weeks there. Of course, the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl virtual event kicking off today. We're excited about that. We've got a jam-packed show for you here today. Big shout out to all our chat room peoples, Robin and Chad Gator. Good to see you guys. As usual, our next guest is none other than Garrick Jones. He's another busy man here on the prowl, fresh off of his Houston Texans GM campaign. He's also the commissioner of the state's football league down there in Texas. We just heard Coach talking about the Lone Star State. Garrick Jones now welcomes us from the Lone Star State. Good morning, Garrick. How are you today?
Good morning, man. I'm good. How about yourself?
We're doing well. We appreciate the time here. Welcome into the state of football. Rick Saratella here along with John Murphy and David Turner. And you bring a vast experience in a lot of different levels. And as a player, a coach, a CEO, a commissioner, we'll just call you a modern day Renaissance man here. Really, I know, you had this great campaign going for the Houston Texans GM job. They've brought in Nick Cesario, and we talked about it on yesterday's show. It kind of looks like a whole dumpster fire mess going on down there in Houston. And you had, you saw Deshaun Watson, not too happy. We already knew J.J. Watt, none too happy. Andre Johnson, one of the legendary, if not the greatest Texan there is,
right.
Who was on board just, I think, a year ago as a special advisor. He comes out now and blasts the organization. I mean, can it get any worse for this Houston organization?
Man, I don't think it can, to be honest with you. But, right now, man, Houston Texans organization is, I think they're raising the bar when it comes down to a lot of different things that are happening in the wrong direction. And that's the situation, man. It's hard to sit there and watch it, especially being a former player, one of the guys who helped, put a stamp on the foundation for the organization to be in the position that it's in today, man. That's just completely unacceptable. And that's part of the reason why I raised my hand in the first place. You got to have people in there that are football guys, guys that are in there for the right reasons. And a lot of times when you start hiring your friends, you got to hold them accountable, or it's a double standard. And unfortunately, I think that's where they are now. And it's going to take some real ingenuity in order to get this thing where it needs to be. But I think it can happen if they bring the right people in the building. And it has to start at the top, man. It's all about leadership,
And they've been sending the wrong people out of the building and bringing the wrong people in the building. So they got to get their act together there. I know Garrick Jones with Rick Saratella, John Murphy, David Turner. David, I know this kind of resonated with you pretty heavily yesterday. So I know you got to get off your chest here today.
Well, I got a lot of it off my chest last night on Mavs Sports Take. Ryan and I did about 30 minutes on this. So if you didn't get a chance to watch us live, it's dropping today. Download it and listen. But I can't say what I said on Mavs because Rick doesn't allow that kind of language here. But I do on my show. That being said, though, I'm actually torn apart here. This is an organization that in 2002, when they came in and they started up, they really looked like they were building it the right way. Right. The owner and everybody really put the priority on hiring good people, surrounding themselves with a good upstart organization, good character individuals. Through the years, I've known plenty of scouts. I, as a scout, have tried tirelessly to get on that staff when Rick Smith was the GM because it was a destination job. It was a job where scouts wanted to go. They knew their voice would be heard. They knew that they would have an opinion in the room. And then it would translate into obviously some success on the roster. Now it's turned into is that my only option job?
Right. Right. So, unfortunately, right. You got
unfortunately, it is, and how they've handled, this whole Shahir Khan, Eric Bieniemy situations. Right. I think John alluded to it on yesterday's show a little bit. It's just like, man, is it showing? I don't know Easter Bay at all. I don't know the new ownership structure, but is it showing they just really don't know what the heck they're doing? They have no, because that's the rumor out there is these guys don't know what they're doing. Is this their actions now speaking to they really don't know what they're doing? I mean, Andre Johnson is he's a soft-spoken man. He's not one that goes out and blows people up. Even when there was quarterback problems there when he was a receiver, he didn't throw people under the bus. And now he's calling people out by name on Twitter. I mean, that's outside the character. I don't want people to underestimate and underappreciate this. This is a man that's very soft-spoken. And on Twitter, he is putting people on blast by name. Please speak to the magnitude of this.
Like I say, man, it's unfortunate, man, that it has gotten to this state. But I think with the way that things are going and they have gone over the years, the players and former players, man, guys are fed up. You look at the direction of it, and there's no clear and concise direction. There's nobody that's really taking the lead. And it's really unfortunate for the fans, the players, former players, and the organization as a whole, because I personally do not want to see it go the way of the Houston Oilers. But if they continue down the road that they're going and nobody really just takes the reins and really, corrals this thing, it could be that situation, because the fans, as I got a chance to meet and greet with a lot of different fans and talk to them, they want to support. They're going to come out and they're going to support, but they are at the point where they don't even want to support anymore. And I understand it completely. And I just wanted to be a voice for them in regards to my whole campaign. But I just want to provide that social proof that, man, you got to have people in there that understands the game, the guys that are in it for the right reasons. And right now, man, it's just like you say, it's a telltale sign of what's going on over there, man. And it's a lot of fires that need to be put out really quickly, man. And I don't know if they have the right people in the building to do that, to be honest with you.
Garrick Jones here on the State of Football with Rick Saratella, John Murphy, David Turner, talking about the Houston Texans situation. And John Murphy, I know you've got your finger on the pulse with this whole organization. What are your thoughts here for Garrick?
Well, the funny thing is that, when you were talking, David, about that, in that period of time, even when they were not getting exactly where Texans fans wanted them, and there were a lot of seasons that ended kind of in that heartbreak or always saying like, man, if we just got a little bit better play on offense, the defense is carrying, when you went to those games and the way that you had to get in to go upstairs, there was always a chance that somewhere between the parking lot and going in the door, you were meeting Garrick Jones, you were meeting Hayward Jeffries, you were meeting Bubba McDowell, you were meeting Bruce Matthews if you went through the right door. There were basically anybody that you had rooted for, seen, publicized, or been around the organization were there. And now it seems like it's hands off. Right? And if you want to see the next shoe to fall, Google the name Jamie Roots. Right? So now when your team president, the business person, not the football, not anything to do with football, has basically tried to walk in and say, you're taking this business so far in the wrong direction that I got other things I'd rather go do than be a team president and run this operation when you're nowhere near the football, right? He's nowhere near anything to do with the football part of it. Now you know that you're in some serious trouble, right? You're in some really serious trouble when the smart, good people you have are leaving from ticketing, marketing, sponsorship. You want to know why you're in a dumpster fire with the media relations? You fired the PR girl. And that's the least respect that she should ever have been given, is calling her that. She was a 15-year member of the organization, somebody who every media person trusted, who she could call on a dime and say, hey, Rick, can you, I know we're 6 in a row on the bad side, but, little light at the end of the tunnel. Can you talk about the punter? Could you do something? She had the ability to manipulate the media in the favor of the Texans, and you fire her. Then you have shown your hand, which is something you never want to do in pro sports, that this was, if you want to get Texans for anything, you basically disobeyed every rule under the sun, because there was no Rooney Rule when it came to the Texans.
Nah.
Right? There was no anything other than them spending the money to hire that firm to cover the tracks of the factor that you had already hired Nick Caserio 2 years ago and then got in trouble for it. Why do you think he still signed a contract for that magnitude with that amount of money? Because that's the offer you gave him 2 years ago to steal him away from the Patriots. Hello, Cal, you should have been able to hire some folks to throw some dirt on the tracks. Okay, if you wanted to spend your money, don't hire a hiring firm. You should have hired David Turner to run a road grader up and down the road to cover the tracks that you put from your spot to New England, instead of acting like this was a real job. And then who starts negotiating? Who starts negotiating with one GM candidate, and then it gets leaked? And the owner of the team goes, oh, wait a minute, we're not actually hiring that guy. I just wanted it to be covered enough. Wait, we're not hiring who you told us. We have our own guy that didn't even have to come in the building.
Right.
I mean, that's the level of incompetency, you're dealing with. But I think the most important thing in terms of Garrick is, don't think this was a presentation for social media, or that it was a presentation as a former player, and that sounds outlandish. Garrick, what I want you to do is tell the folks some of the things, because every week I turned around and either you're a speed reader, or I know when I met you in college, this is a kid that's working on his degree. He's got an album going on out of his dorm room. He's doing album design covers out of another area in his dorm room. So this is what he was doing when he was 20 years old.
Right.
What are some of the programs?
Garrick.
What are some of the programs and some of the people that you've interacted with in the past 6 months, and some of the things that you've achieved in terms of, if I said, why should they have interviewed you? Right. What are some of the added things besides, 20 years in the business and all that personality? What are some of the other things you've accomplished in the past year in order to put yourself front and center for a job like this?
Well, when it comes down to that, man, all the boxes, I check them, whether it be the philanthropic space. I'm the president of the Huddle Up Foundation of Houston. I'm a treasurer of the NFLPA Houston chapter, which is, about 1,500 guys or so that we get a chance to do some things with. Actually, in regards to the whole petition, that was for social proof. I wanted to prove to the organization that I can help bring in revenue. So if you really bust down the numbers, I was in front of 100,000 or so signatures, and that equates to around $12.5 million per game that I would bring in if they would have hired me. So that essentially would have taken care of my salary, the new coach's head salary, the new head coach's salary, and also what they got to pay Bill O'Brien to 2023. So when it comes down to it, man, it's about business. I'm a businessman, and John Murphy will tell you, when we first met, I was running my own graphics design company, which I started in the 9th grade, and we're still running it to this day. So when it comes down to the business acumen and understanding the game and the dynamics of being able to negotiate and understand what these players are going through, those are the things that I bring to the table. And it has to be a shift when it comes down to relating to these athletes, especially this new generation. I'm seeing so much of a disconnect to where you're disconnected from the fans, the athletes, and the former players. So anytime that happens, man, that's a disconnect from reality. And apparently that's what's going on in the Texans organization. And I get it. It's one of those things where, with the NFL and these teams, man, you can have a losing season and still be profitable, and that right there is a false sense of reality when it comes down to it, because once these fans catch on and they understand that they don't have a voice at all, and you have these players who are just disenfranchised with the whole organization and the situation, that's when you end up having to sell these teams. And that's something that I never wanted to happen for the Texans or any other organization, man, because we need sports, especially right now during COVID, in which I got a chance to sit down and I just focused on being certified in so many different arenas, whether it be sports management, athlete management, finances. I mean, I finished my degree during this time in which I wanted to make sure that I had everything and I checked all those boxes. So, man, when I say we were putting in the work, we're still putting in the work. But it's just like being a player. You know, one team may not want you. There's 31 other teams. So this is how that works. And this is what I bring to the table.
Garrick Jones here on the State of Football with Rick Saratella, John Murphy, David Turner. All right, Garrick, let's put the GM hat on and let's now just recap the Houston Texans.
All right.
Who would you like, or who would you have brought in, or who would have been some of the candidates that you would have liked to have brought in for this head coaching opening?
Well, for the gig, man, for me, it comes down to me being a player. So for the situation that the Texans are in, you have to have somebody that's going to ignite and motivate those players as well as the city itself. And a lot of the guys that I looked at and I watched on film and all these different interviews, if they weren't able to make the hairs on my arm stand up, they didn't have a chance with me, because I'm not going to bring the same situation of what we just had in. So, you know, of course, you have your popular guys like Eric Bieniemy. You got Dave's out in Buffalo. You got Robert Salah out there with the 49ers. Then you got Todd Bowles. You know, these types of guys where they're going to motivate these players. You got Wink out in Baltimore. The players love them. And you got to bring somebody in that's going to be able to connect with these players and going to be able to resonate with them and get them to understand what the singular source of what we're looking for, and that's championships. We don't want anything but the championships, the Super Bowls. That's the talk we got to have. So those are the types of guys I would have been able to bring in and talk to them from a player standpoint and also from a business standpoint and see where they were. And you hear about these guys not interviewing well. That's the same thing with myself with the standardized test. When you gave me a Wonderlic, it didn't really tell you how smart I was. So you have to be able to have intentional communication, those types of things.
David, any final thoughts here on the Houston Texans situation?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, here's my thing. Like John said, they told you it was a farce. They brought in Trent Christner, who is a legitimate candidate to be a GM. They were negotiating with Omar Khan, who was a legitimate and has been a legitimate GM candidate out of the Steelers. They're still paying Brian Gaine, again, a legitimate GM candidate. They gave a 5-year deal to and then fired him after 1 year. They showed Rick Smith the door, who is a legitimate GM candidate. Now he's probably going to land in Atlanta or Jacksonville somewhere this year, and then people will flock to want to work for him because like a scout or like a player, scouts want to work for certain people. Rick Smith is one of those people. Brian Gaine, Trent Christner, Omar, they're all these kind of people. And they decided not to do it, right, Garrett?
Yeah.
So for me, when I'm looking at this situation, what's the road to recovery? Because right now the road has been filled with lies, misleads, right. And even submitting the tag now for Bieniemy is a false tag, right. Because you can't. The door closed on Sunday, so right. You're telling me a team that's likely to win the Super Bowl, you're going to wait 2 to 3 more weeks to hire your coach while all these other coaches and staffs get hired. All these things start getting filled over the next couple of weeks. They're going to wait just to interview Bieniemy and not hire anybody. That's a falsehood. Now you're lying to your quarterback trying to appease him, right, when the window's already closed on Bieniemy. So the road right now that I look and as I walk it in my mind and read the tea leaves is one that looks filled with lies and deception. What's the road back home? How does the power to be Nick, Easter Bay, those people, how do they change the narrative? How do they get back down the right road, the road that should be the one that Houston Texans should lay out to walk?
Well, they're going to have to really do something drastic. And right now the fans are calling for the firing of Easter Bay. So that's a start. I never want to see anybody get fired, but in this business, man, it's a performance-based business. So people fire themselves. It's just that simple. If I don't do what I need to do on the field, they got somebody coming in next Tuesday that's going to replace me. So it has to be that situation and scenario in upper management. There has to be a level of accountability, a level of transparency. They got to bring some guys in there that are vested in this organization, that want to see this organization thrive. And it's not a situation of coming in with, preconceived notions of I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, and egos. There is no room for that at this particular point. You got to bring people in here who are for the people, people in, bring guys in that are going to be focused on the end game, and that's the Super Bowls, and that's intentional communication within that building, and complete transparency. Because right now, it's just like you say, man, it's been nothing but a web of lies, and it's unfortunate because there were a lot of people that were, I'm talking about, hopeful that they were going to make the right moves, and they already had what they wanted to do set up, and we didn't know. And when you do that, you've alienated so many different people. You've alienated guys like Dre, guys like myself, guys like Chester Pitts, all these guys. We put our blood, sweat, and tears into that organization, and we put our lives on the line every day at practice and whatever else the situation would be. And then for it to be in a position that it's in right now, man, it's really in shambles. But they're going to have to bring some people in. I'm still here. I'm still one of the guys that have put in the work for the last year, that has the people behind it, and also the track record and the business acumen and the resume. I put my body of work up against anybody at any given time on any given day, and we'll see who's going to be able to come out. But it's about the livelihood of carrying on what Bob McNair put in place. And right now they're not doing it, man. They're running it like it's a sleepover for best friends, and you can't do a business like that, especially in the NFL.
We saw J.J. Watt very outspoken during the season. We've now seen Deshaun Watson outspoken after the season, and now all-time legends such as Andre Johnson. There is. I mean, this is a lot of. And by the way, no first-round pick.
For 2 years.
Yeah, right.
For 2 years, and no second-round pick this year. They don't have the draft capital, Rick. They don't have a positive road here. And you got guys clamoring, and I think JJ wants to go up to Pittsburgh and go be with the brothers for his last 2 years of playing. Right. So you don't have a positive situation, and I hate to say it because, again, John Murphy, myself, Rick Sarantella, we're available. You got 4 candidates here on the screen available
right,
that are qualified to do this the right way. If you wanted to really do some interviewing, there are 4 candidates on the screen right now. Texans, if you're listening, we're available. Let us know.
Hey, I'm here to sweep up the sawdust. Time to State of Football. Rick Sarantella, David Turner, along with Garrick Jones, former player on the field, entrepreneur off the field. I want to dive into this State's Developmental Football League you've got going on, Garrick, because we're all about developing players and feeling that there's a big need for a developmental league. And it looks like you're doing the proper due diligence here, taking the time to kind of get your ducks in a row. What can you tell us about this great venture you have?
Well, with the SDFL, it's something that, was the brainchild of myself and my business partner, Byron Clay. We wanted to figure out how to marry business, with the sport of football. When I played, it was the X's and the O's every week. But by the time you retire, X's and O's don't equate to success off the field. So that's why you got guys that are, whether it be divorces, foreclosures, the bankruptcies, all those different things. We wanted to be able to put a curriculum together and have that being played out the entire season in regards to our whole developmental platform, and everything about our league has a business opportunity tied to it. So now these players can put themselves in a better position where they're creating generational wealth, and then the league itself would be able to have percentages come back. So that way, the monies that are generated by these players, for life, is always going to be something come back to the league. So that way we can sustain and we can grow. The way we do what we do is, man, it's a bi-weekly type of situation. So 1 week you focus on the game, and then the next week you take the time out to really slow the game down, really teach the entire scope of what goes on to be a professional athlete. But you're also introducing the financial literacy component. You're also introducing the business component to it, the entrepreneurship, the branding, the marketing. You're also introducing the aspect of life insurance, all these things that these guys need. But it's not just the players, it's the families as well. So that way you're building up the families, and they know what to do, and everybody's in a good position. But not only is it a developmental situation for the players, but for these guys that want to scout, these guys that want to coach, all these guys that are in NFLPA that want to be a part of the NFL but can't get back in. You got your refs, you got the upper management in regards to the GAs and the actual interns. Everybody would have an opportunity to develop and now be a feeder for the NFL, in which, we look to go at the same time as the NFL. because, every year they're coming in with 90 guys and they got to whittle it down to 53 men. But now with the new rules, they're chopping the preseason up. So what do you do with these guys who you're not able to develop? You need some kind of system that's already in place. So when we started this thing in 2012, we said, look, we'll play a couple of seasons of football, but that's the easy part. The hardest part is now the business, the financial aspects, bringing in the strategic partners and being able to set this thing up to where when we actually approach the NFL, it's already done. It's a situation where you're allocating your guys that you're cutting. They come to us. They're getting coached up by guys who have actually been in the NFL. And we're going to run the same schemes and scenarios as these teams. So when they come back, they're not missing a beat and they have a veteran's presence about themselves. So it just makes sense, man. It's time,
Would this run in association with the NFL calendar, or would it be a spring league, or what's your vision there?
Nah, it'll run with the NFL calendar, same time.
And I see, that's what I always felt like that was the best way to do it, because now you got players in game shape. You literally can call them up, and the thirst and the need, I believe it's still there. Like if you ran games on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays, people are tuning in because it's football season. They want, and people want action. They want fantasy. They just want all football all the time. During football season. I know you're talking our language here, along with John Murphy, David Turner. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think the other thing that needs to be looked at here is what Garrick said about, hey, this grew from, like when you play for a team and then you're living there and you're there every Sunday and you're watching this from a distance, but also, right up close to, to realizing like, hey, how would I feel if that's what my career, if that's what was going on with the team when I was there as a player? If I was there and these kind of things were happening, how would I be responding as a player? How are these guys responding? And then when you see a guy like Deshaun Watson use the factor as the most popular player, one of their highest paid players, and now step out on a limb and say, like, hey, this may be an uncomfortable position, but it is something that needs to be done and shows real leadership. Because a lot of guys would have been concerned about saying things like this and presenting themselves in that manner. I think the most important thing out of all this is not that it was a one-time opportunity, but to look at it and say, Chris Grier, it's 2021.
Right.
And until further notice, Chris Grier is the only minority GM in the NFL. So if you're listening, Roger Goodell, there may be a minority program. There may be things that you've set in motion, but until you are putting guys like Garrick into a real mechanism, right? Let them do all the work, because he's not saying, much like his career, when you were playing, you had to get better, right? You didn't start on the first team. You started on the practice roster. You started on the third team. You started going to workout. This is the same scenario now off the field. But if there is no starting position available, then we got to be honest with ourselves as a league and more importantly as individuals and say, well, then if it's easier for me to get that opportunity than it is for Garrick, why is that? What's wrong with a system that wouldn't allow him to have an equal opportunity to jobs like this that I have? Why is that? Because if he goes down those roads and starts knocking off each one of those things, you got your education? Yes. You got your background? Yes. Did you learn about the contracts? Yes. Did you learn about the yes. Okay, well, now we need a mechanism to connect guys like Garrick, right, with Larry Lee, right, like with former guys that have had success, with an Ozzie Newsome, with people like that, and say the only way we're ever going to have a more diverse group of people interviewing for jobs, but more importantly, actually getting the jobs, being in the role the next time, where instead of it being a guy like Nick Caserio, it's a guy like Garrick or a Larry Lee or so on and so is to change the optics of how it's being done. Right. So how does one guy sit in a situation like that in New England, and another guy is out knocking out each one of these categories, and Caserio still would have been a candidate for all those other jobs, and now Garrick has to try to get his name associated with another job, right? And he's not the only one. We know all the other candidates that are looking for coaching. You know, why does it have to be? We're giving Eric Bieniemy almost like I guess we'll interview him because our quarterback, made a big deal out of it. Oh, well, people are talking about it on the internet. I guess we should. Eric Bieniemy was a qualified candidate the entire time, right? We're making it seem like, well, I guess we should interview the minority candidate too, as if he's, not qualified, right? And I think that's the part of the business, that we have to stand up for and say, if it looks incorrect, right? If it sounds improper to you, well, it's because it is, right? And until people stand up and say, hey, there's an accountability problem with our league, right? There's accountability problem with us as individuals to not recognize the factor that I can't sit there and say that Garrick and I shouldn't both be able to walk into the same room and interview for the same job and high five each other on the way in or out and say, hey, let the best person win, but not that it should be tilted one way or the other. It should not be in that situation where somebody like that is having to use this platform just to get their name where it should have been without that. And I think that's something we really need to look at when you look at each one of these jobs, right? When we come back, unfortunately, and replay this in a month and all these jobs are filled, how many of them are filled by minority candidates? And why did that not work out again, right? How come you got to get 2 third-round picks potentially to hire Garrick and no extra draft picks to hire me, right? That does not make sense whatsoever, right? So saying, well, we threw him a bone and we gave out 2 extra draft picks, that should tell you how bad and how messed up that system is.
Absolutely. I agree 110%, man. And it's about the same thing on the field. The best man is going to win. And that's all I've ever asked for, in regards to making it to the NFL the first time. We did that. So now it's the second time where we're going to go back in and we're going to make that history all over again, but we're going to do it the right way. And that's all I've ever been about is about being a change agent and showing people that, you can change the narrative for everybody involved. So it's advantageous across the board. But in order to get there, I need to be at the table so I can show you exactly what that looks like. And once you see it, now you understand what it is to go to a Super Bowl and how you can be able to eat off that for the rest of your life, especially from a guy that is playing the game when it comes down to negotiations. You can talk about all the money you want up front, but if you are selfless enough to come in and give us what we need and you understand that we're going to take care of you, make sure that you're eating after you're done and your family's going to be good and you go get this Super Bowl, I'll show you so many different avenues in which you're going to be able to make even more money than when you played. So it's time for that type of change. It's time for that type of dialogue. It's time for these organizations to bring guys in and just listen to us. I mean, over the last 8 months, I've conducted a diversity and inclusion workshop. I started to take a class, but I said, hell, I might as well teach the class because I know all about that from just playing ball. And that's what I did, with Equilibrium Sports and all the different things that we have going on. So when it comes down to it, man, it's about bringing some new and innovative things to the table. Because if you do it the right way, all this here, man, all the picks that they try to give and all this, we get away from all that and we get back to the game and we get back to the basics. And I think that's what needs to happen, man.
Talking to Garrick Jones here on the State of Football. Rick Saratella, John Murphy, David Turner, and the state's Developmental Football League, I think, can help pave the way for a lot of these opportunities that we're talking about, right? Create more opportunities. Right now, they're not only are there only 32 jobs, but we had XFL opportunities taken away. We had CFL opportunities taken away. David Turner.
Yes, we did.
About that. And here's somebody who's worked for not just 6 different NFL organizations, but alternate leagues such as the CFL, who may have financial struggles. He's worked in the UFL, who went defunct. He's worked in the Arena League that you talk about trying to sustain a league. There's a lot of challenges and difficulties, and David Turner could definitely talk about his experiences there. But the state's Developmental Football League, David, I think it's fair to say is long overdue.
No, I love it. I honestly, Garrick, let me get involved. Help me find a path to doing it, because when I worked in the UFL, one of the greatest rewards was we played during football season. So when we concluded our season, we had 28 players go back up to the NFL out of our 52-man roster, because it was right around the time, late November, mid-November, when teams needed guys in football shape to now come in and be able to sustain. And we had guys like Lorenzo Booker. Josh McCown was our quarterback, okay? And he's still playing. We had Quentin Demps as one of our safeties. These are guys that not only went back up, but they sustained careers at the NFL level for a long time and are still playing to this day. And it's a very much needed situation. I think the timing you picked is absolutely right, because it's like AAA baseball. They can pull them up, they can send them down, they can do all sorts of things with it. And the football shape's key, because as you alluded to, when someone gets cut in training camp, and they go home and they're asked to train, you don't know what kind of shape they're in. And so you bring them in for a workout, they make it through a workout, but then the next day they go out to practice and they pop a hamstring, and now you got to find another replacement. When a football player playing football during football season comes up, he's used to the contact, the paddedness, all that kind of fatigue that happens, and he's in that football shape. It's an amazing dynamic, and honestly, this morning I've learned a lot about it. So I'm sitting here, I was taking notes on my phone as you were talking, and I tweeted, I talked in the private chat. I'm like, this is like what we did in the UFL. This is a perfect model. But like Rick said, I have seen things fail, so I know where the missteps have been in the business side and with the business side, as well as where the successes are and how it's been. So, I would love to be involved. If there's a path for me to be involved, let me know, please.
No, absolutely, Dave. And that's the thing about it. That's why we've taken our time and we've beta tested each sector for as long as we have. We wanted to make sure that when we go live, that it won't stop, because you have all these leagues that come and go, because they're essentially just football. 70% of what we do caters to the things that are off the field. The other 30 is that's easy. It's like riding a bicycle. You know what I'm saying? To take the correct step and do these different things that you're coached up on the field. We've done that, and we wanted to be able to bring that all together. So, and to go back to what you say and just segueing off of that, that's what I looked at in my career. Everything that I saw, being released, trying to go to another team, all those different aspects of it. We wanted to make sure that when we approached the NFL, it just made sense for them to get behind it, because it's another revenue stream for that particular team. And there's so many different ways to override everything that's being done, to the point to where once the NFL says, you know what, we like this, we like the structure of it. We can allocate our players to this particular team. These guys are going to be, you just say, for instance, you go to training camp. The guys that are coaching, for the SDFL, those will be guys that are former guys and guys who have, Division I coaching experience and so on and so forth. But you bring those guys to camp, allow them to understand the dynamic of what the direction is of the coaching and what they want to see, and they take that back to those camps for the SDFL. And now you have that seamless transition. So when those guys are released, we already know where they're coming from. They come in and get to work. They're getting their game film. We've got offensive linemen, defensive linemen that are moving up and down the field, so they're just not in one particular spot. We're making them uncomfortable, so they have to grow. And that's on and off the field. So when they come back, they got a veteran's mentality, and they also know what they're doing on that field, and they step right in. Not like an NFL Europe situation where you send them to another country and they're doing an entirely different scheme. So they got to come back and learn these different things. So I looked at all the things that I saw, and I said, man, this just makes sense. Let's build it out. Let's set it up. And this is a part of what I would have been bringing to teams in regards to this whole GM situation. So these are the things that need to be talked about. These are the things that need to be exposed. And these are the things that we need to educate people on, because it can work. I guarantee you, once I get a chance to sit down with and talk with, whether it be Goodell or anybody, a team owner, once they see that the revenue will be able to be generated from them, and it offsets anything that these guys have lost from COVID. And once you see it, like, this is a seamless type of situation, because every year there's a new crop. Everybody can't play in the NFL. but everybody's going to have bills, babies, and problems. So let's focus on them, get them together. And now if they have the opportunity after they're coached up the right way, you bring those guys right back up and you don't miss a beat. So it's not like a situation in Denver where you got this kid playing quarterback who's a receiver. You see what I'm saying? So you're not missing a beat. And this year exposed everything with COVID and being able to pivot. Those things that happened in Denver should have never happened to that young man. And it did. So we have the solution for that, man.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Cleveland Browns. They had to pick up street free agents, same a couple days before a playoff game. So at Commissioner GJ, Garrick Jones here. Make sure you go follow him at Commissioner GJ, who's doing so many great things. I feel like we could sit here and talk football all day. Garrick, anything else you want to impart upon our listening audience with things that you've got going on, things that you're involved with, anything you want to plug? I'm glad to see you're involved with the NFL Players Association, the chapter down in Houston, I think it is. The NFL Players Association Collegiate Bowl kicks off tonight. We're excited about that.
Right.
But what else do you want to plug here before we wrap things up?
Man, I just appreciate you guys for giving us this platform. You talk about being here for these teams, and being available and those types of things. You guys are the type of guys that will be a part of this movement. Wherever I am, you guys have a home, and that's the beautiful thing about just that resources and relationships and the nepotism that's out there. You hear about it so much in the NFL, about the buddy boy system and this, that, and the third. But for what we have, it's about bringing the right people in the right environment so we can go get this championship. And you guys, personify that. You guys have been battle tested. You guys have been around the block. Just like I have, and for the relationship that myself and John Murphy have, I mean, we go way back, man. He's been instrumental in me making it to the NFL in the first place. So it's guys like you guys that need to be, looked at and said, and revered, man, because you guys have paved the way for a lot of athletes and those types of things and just people in general. And we're going to make this thing happen, man. One way or another, we're going to get that opportunity. And that's what this thing is about, man. So that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate you guys for having me on today.
Well, we know where to go to get the dirt on John Murphy now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But no, in all seriousness, I think all three of us would love to get involved with what you got going on. So, you've got my information now, and we'll definitely be chatting after today's show. So we appreciate the time here today and look forward to chatting in the future.
Let's make it happen, guys. Appreciate you, man.
All right. There you have it. Garrick, former player, entrepreneur, and, you love to see stories like this where players go on to have a more successful career post-playing days because